Mongabay Reports is a series that shares evergreen articles from Mongabay.com, read by myself, Mike DiGirolamo. This episode's feature article is Cheetah Reintroduction in Malawi Brings Vultures Back to the Skies by Ryan Truscott on the 25th of July, 2022. 4 species of critically endangered vulture have returned to a park in southern Malawi from which they disappeared more than 20 years ago, and their comeback is credited to the reintroduction of cheetahs, lions, and the carcasses the cats left behind, conservationists say. In 2017, 7 cheetahs were reintroduced to Liwonde National Park under a project run by African Parks and the Endangered Wildlife Trust, 2 conservation groups working in partnership with Malawi's Department of National Parks and Wildlife. Within days, and with the cheetahs still in their acclimatization pen, or boma, the vultures showed up. "We made a bit of a carcass pile not far from the boma," recalls Olivia Sievert, head of biodiversity research at the Liwonde Wildlife Trust, a conservation NGO that monitors carnivores in the park. She and other members of her team set up a camera trap near the carcass pile. They expected to capture images of spotted hyenas, a species they were monitoring, but they were in for a surprise. "We started getting vultures on camera traps," says Sievert. By the second week of the cheetahs being in the boma, the vultures were in the trees around the boma, which was very exciting to see. The Cheetah Reintroduction Project has been successful. The population within the 548,000-hectare park reached 42 at the last count, according to a recent paper in Oryx authored by Sievert. A second generation of cheetahs are now breeding and raising cubs. Lions were introduced months after the cheetahs, helping to boost the availability of food for the vultures. Vultures and cheetahs and lions disappeared from Liwonde and a number of other protected areas in Malawi in the wake of a poaching crisis in the 1990s and early 2000s. One effect of the vulture extirpation meant that the animals that died from natural causes weren't picked clean by the birds, whose ability to rapidly consume carcasses and the potentially fatal human and livestock diseases they harbor is legendary. Other birds of prey, bateller and tawny and fish eagles, marabou storks, and ospreys that would usually be pushed aside by the vultures became more active as scavengers, Sievert says. But they weren't nearly as efficient. "We had a lot more carcasses just rotting away, especially in the dry season when we start losing a lot of animals in the open floodplains," she explains. Older animals were simply keeling over from old age, something that wouldn't happen if cheetahs and lions were around to pick them off earlier. Surprisingly, bush pigs were recorded doing the most of the scavenging in Liwonde. The animals are better known for eating grass and roots. "We definitely saw an increase in some of the scavengers that you don't normally see scavenging in parks that have proper full ecosystems," Sievert says. The return of the vultures was, therefore, hugely welcome. The first 2 species to arrive back in Liwonde in 2017 were critically endangered white-backed vultures and hooded vultures. They included one bird that has been tagged in the nest of the Imfolozi Game Reserve in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province, around 2,500 kilometers to the south. 3 other species have now been recorded in Liwonde: critically endangered white-headed, endangered labbit-faced, and Rappel's vultures, a species normally associated with East Africa and the Sahel. To top it all, last year park managers found 3 white-backed vulture nests built in the crowns of tall Borassus palms. These were the first active breeding records of vultures in Liwonde for more than 2 decades. "It really is encouraging to see. It's one of the good news stories that we are eager to share with people," says Andre Puerta, the Endangered Wildlife Trust's Vultures for Africa program manager. Effective management of the park by African Parks via its public-private partnership with the DNPW also played a key role in the vultures' return, he says. "It has created a safe space for the cheetahs, the lions, and the vultures to flourish." Good news about Africa's vultures is normally hard to come by. Indiscriminate or deliberate poisoning, collisions with electricity cables, and habitat loss have driven down their numbers. A 2015 study, still considered the standard text on this decline, found populations of 7 species of African vulture had dropped by 80% or more over 3 generations. "Poison is very often the tool of choice to hunt and kill animals across Africa," explains Puerta, who is also co-chair of the IUCN's Vulture Specialist Group. It is used with devastating effect against predators like lions or hyenas or jackals as revenge for attacks on farmers' livestock, or for other purposes like poaching elephants for their ivory. Vultures are very often the intentional or unintentional victims. Memories are still fresh of the deliberate poisoning of more than 2,000 hooded vultures in the West African nation of Guinea-Bissau in 2020, reportedly for belief-based use of the bird's body parts. Some vultures tracked by the EWT in southern and East Africa, however, are fitted with mortality sensors. If a bird with a satellite tag dies, Weitzer and his team can alert people on the ground through training provided by the EWT to respond more quickly to possible poisoning incidents. The impact of the poisoning should be reduced, he says. One person who can testify to the devastating effect of poisoning in Liwonde in the past is Liwonde National, an ecologist at the Malawi University of Science and Technology who is not involved with the cheetah reintroduction project. Back in 2006, National came upon dozens of Lillian's lovebirds, a near-threatened species of tiny green parrot, lying dead from poison laid by poachers beside a waterhole in the park. Poisoning had already taken its toll on the park's vultures, and National, a regular visitor to Liwonde, had grown used to never seeing them circling in its skies. I do think it's very encouraging to have vultures come back to Liwonde, she tells Mongabay. It's much better than the situation before where we just had animals rotting away because there were very few scavengers to take care of the animals that had died. Deforestation is another threat to the lovebirds that National now works to research and protect, and the vultures she and others are welcoming back. The demand for charcoal has denuded much of Malawi's landscape outside of protected areas. Controversially, Malawi's largest illegal logging case took place in 2017 within one key national park, Lengwe, to the south of Liwonde. More than 2,000 hectares of the 88,700-hectare park were lost, according to the Liwonde Wildlife Trust. With the recovery of the vultures, we need to protect the large trees that they like to nest in and ensure that they're available for them to continue to nest, says National. Lengwe and the Majeta Wildlife Reserve, also in the southwest, are critical to Liwonde's new vulture population. Data gathered from tagging white-backed vultures in Liwonde last year and published recently revealed that the birds were moving between all three protected areas to feed. Other vultures tagged in Liwonde have been found in protected areas beyond Malawi's borders. Weitzer says one of the tagged birds has been recorded in the Niassa Special Reserve in northern Mozambique. Others, as far south as Liwonde National Park in central Mozambique. For Malawi's small breeding population of vultures, protected areas like Liwonde, Lengwe, and Majeta, where a second population of cheetahs has now been established, are safe havens. So are those in neighboring countries. All these areas are vitally important for vultures and for the prey that they feed upon, says Weitzer. Healthy carnivore populations are an integral part of that. This has been a special Mongabay audio report. Original article by Ryan Truscott. I am your reader, Mike DiGirolamo. Special projects like this are made possible by our Patreon supporters. Please consider becoming a monthly sponsor via our Patreon page at patreon.com/Mongabay. As little as $1 per month will help us offset the production costs and hosting fees to help us make more content like this. Keep up with all of Mongabay's news from Nature's Frontline at Mongabay.com. Get updates from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Mastodon, where our handle is at Mongabay. And check out our video reporting on YouTube, where our handle is at Mongabay TV. Thanks for listening.